What's up, you guys? My name is Aubrey and this is my channel, and today I want to talk about the American Families Plan. And I want to break down all of the details of this plan and, more importantly, what it means for you. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down what is included, what is not included, when you can expect for this bill to become a reality if it ever becomes a reality, and so much more. So let's get started. Now, a couple of days ago, President Joe Biden announced the American Families Plan, and he outlined a handful of the efforts and a handful of the ventures that this plan would fund. Now, this is part two of a two-part infrastructure bill. The total value of this infrastructure bill is about $4 trillion. The first of these parts is the American Jobs Plan, which is a more traditional infrastructure bill focused on clean energy, roads, transportation, and jobs. The second part to this $4 trillion infrastructure is the American Families Plan, which is the plan that was announced a couple of days ago. The American Families Plan is a $1.8 trillion spending bill with an intense focus on families, low and middle income individuals, and also childcare and education. Now, before I dive into this plan, I would like to issue a bit of a warning. Now, as of right now, this plan is just that. It's a plan. There is no physical paper that has an outline of what this would include. There is no drafted legislation. We are in the very early stages of this plan being announced. And because of that, it is expected that things are going to change. What I talk about today in this video is not necessarily what's going to become a reality if and when this bill gets passed, and things will change and shift and things will be adjusted. So keep that in mind moving forward, that what I'm talking about today is certainly not set in stone. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this spending bill is valued at about $1.8 trillion. And of that $1.8 trillion, $225 billion will be allocated to childcare and the effort of making childcare more affordable. Under this plan, the average American family would save approximately $14,800 in childcare costs. And the way that this would be accomplished is by capping the amount of money that families spend on childcare. And basically, the way that this would work is that families that are earning 1.5 times the median household income in their state would qualify to have their childcare costs capped at no more than 7% of their annual income. And this would be eligible for children up to the age of 5. In addition to childcare funding, there is also going to be funding allocated to universal preschool as well. And according to the American Families Plan, there would be $200 billion allocated to providing universal preschool to 3 and 4-year-olds, which would save the average American family about $13,000. In addition to just providing resources for childcare and for families with children, there's also discussions of tax credits being implemented as well to help offset the cost of childcare. And this would be in addition to capping the cost of childcare as well as providing universal preschool as well. Now, while we are on the topic of families, let's discuss this paid leave. Now, there is discussions to implement a 12-week paid leave. Now, this is something that the United States, at least like on a federal government level, has never seen before. The idea of maternity leave and paternity leave and just general leave from work is certainly something that exists, but it's offered on a company-by-company basis. There is nothing that is guaranteed by the government, and this plan would change that. Under this plan, there is up to 12 weeks of leave, and this could be used if you have a child, this could be used if your partner has a child, this could be used if you have a sick or dying relative, it could be used if you're taking care of your child because your child is sick. The uses of this leave is quite broad, but it would be for up to 12 weeks, and you would be able to supplement your income for up to $4,000 per month. So in a lot of cases, you wouldn't be able to make the exact same amount of money as you would be if you're working, but there would be supplement payments for paid leave up to $4,000. Now, in addition to childcare and families, there's also an intense focus on education as well. Now, something that President Joe Biden mentioned in his speech and something that I mentioned in my video from yesterday is the fact that there is a focus on education because of the fact that there has been studies done that education helps not only make the United States more competitive, but it is overall just a good thing. You know, studies have shown that the higher education rate there is, the lower crime there is. The higher education there is, the higher the earners are. There is a direct correlation between prosperity and education. And so making education accessible is certainly something that is a focus of this plan. Now, with this plan, there would be 2 years of community college provided to students for free. This means that you could get an associate's degree for free and you wouldn't have to pay a dime. Now, of course, whenever we're talking about community college, we're talking about local community schools that aren't big time universities. So you would have to go to a local community college in order to claim this 2 years free. But in a lot of cases, for example, my siblings did this, you go to community college for 2 years and then you transfer to a university to get your 4-year degree or your higher education from there. So this is a very real, accessible, and effective route to go down for higher education in a cost-effective and efficient way. And if this plan was to be passed, then those first 2 years would be provided to you for free. There's also discussions to lower the cost of college for low-income and middle-income earners, specifically in minority schools. So schools with a large African-American population, a large Native American population, a large Pacific Islanders population, and more. So these universities that have this influx of these minority populations could see a lower cost in their overall college education. The exact verbiage from the White House is lower college costs for low and middle-income students at historically Black colleges and universities, tribal colleges and universities, and institutions such as Hispanic serving institutions, Asian American and Native American Pacific Islander serving institutions, and other minority serving institutions, MSIs. That is what the White House says. Exactly what that means and how much it would be lowered is still something that is remained to be seen. In addition to just making university and community college more affordable, there's also discussions to open the Pell Grant system to make it more accessible, but to also increase the eligible amount that you could receive by $1,400. In addition to doing this, there's also discussions to opening up the Pell Grant system to Dreamers as well. And lastly, as far as education goes, there is discussions and there's a plan to help teachers more effectively educate students as well. And there's $9 billion being allocated to this effort. Now, of these programs that I just mentioned, I forgot to mention the total amount of money that they are being allocated. For the paid family leave, there is $225 billion being allocated to this. And for free community college, it is valued at about $109 billion. There is also talks to have $25 billion being allocated to nutrition assistance for children and making school meals and school lunches more affordable and also healthier as well. In addition to just creating new programs like the one that I've just discussed, there are also discussions to extend some of the programs and some of the efforts that we've seen with COVID relief, including providing more help to pay for childcare permanently, including keeping the Affordable Care Act subsidies that have been laid out since the pandemic, as well as making the enhanced earned income tax credit permanent. But the most substantial piece of information as far as the extended efforts and extended programs go is the child tax credit. Now, the child tax credit is a tax credit for people that have children, and depending on how much you earn on a year-to-year basis would dictate how much you would be eligible for through the child tax credit. But with the child tax credit, you could theoretically be eligible for $3,600 for children 5 and below and $3,000 for children ages 6 and above. This would come in the form of monthly payments, and for 2021, half of it would come in the form of monthly payments between the month of July and December, and the other half would come in the form of a lump sum payment come tax season next year. Now, with this proposal, the American Families Plan, it would extend this child tax credit and the structure that we currently have with this latest stimulus package. It would extend this out until 2025, which means that theoretically, if you qualified for the full amount of the tax credit and you had a child that was recently born, like in 2021, so you have an infant, you could potentially qualify in $14,400 total in total aid through the child tax credit system. And depending on how many kids you have, you could potentially be eligible for tens of thousands of dollars. This credit would be fully refundable, which means lower income earners could take advantage of it, which historically has not been the case as far as tax credits go. Now, this child tax credit is substantial, and this is the closest thing to reoccurring stimulus checks that I think that we will see. I don't think that we will see a fourth stimulus check. I don't think we'll see reoccurring stimulus checks, but I do think that the child tax credit is the closest thing to this that we could actually see. The fact is, depending on how many kids you have, depending on the age of your kids, depending on your income, you could receive up to $300 or $250 per month. And that is substantial, especially on a month-by-month basis. So for example, if you have one child that is 1 year old, you would get $300 per month. If you have two children, ages 3 and 6, you would get $550 per month. If you have two children who are, let's say, 10 and 15 years old, you would receive $500 per month. So the amount that you make is dependent on number 1, how many kids you have, number 2, the age of the kids, and number 3, how much you make. But regardless, this is substantial for working families, and in my opinion, I think it's the closest thing to a fourth stimulus check that we will see. Now, regardless of whether or not the child tax credit becomes a reality through 2025, we do still have the child tax credit, which will become a reality in July. So stay tuned for that. Now, with that being said, you guys, the fact of the matter is this is a big plan. This is a large spending bill, and there's a lot of things that this plan covers. Not to mention the fact that we are still very, very early on in this process. And what is discussed in this video will without a doubt not be exactly what is passed when and if this bill becomes a reality. The bill needs to be drafted, the bill needs to be negotiated on, the bill needs to be passed, and all of these steps will take a lot of time. And if I was a betting person, I would probably say that we won't see this bill becoming a reality until late summer. That's my guess. I, of course, could be wrong. But with that being said, you guys, if you have any questions, comments, or if you have anything to add, then make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.